this is the rest of them. Emily here, just wanting to kind of talk about what I've been reading this year and what I'm going to continue reading into 2025. And really just because I like to keep a journal of what I'm reading, but I thought maybe a video version of just sort of talking about some of the books that I'm reading. I don't really have a lot of people to talk to them about. So, in a way, I thought this would be interesting just to see and compare how I, physically write about what I'm reading and how that kind of applies into my everyday life. And then also have the option to watch it back and see how I communicate about it, how I talk about it. So if nobody ever watches any of these videos, that's okay. Because I just want to have a record of it for myself. And this is just another way to do that. If there is anybody else out there watching this, then great. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the books that I'm reading. I think you'll probably find some of these to be familiar because I am a part of a online book club that if the algorithms are working properly, then you either might be in that same book club or you have heard about it, and so some of these will seem familiar with you. I also think that maybe we'll share some of the same channels that we both watch, that we both subscribe to. And I think when that happens, when people talk about books on YouTube, a lot of the times, if you watch one of their videos, then a lot of other people either subconsciously or consciously and say, oh, I do want to read the book that they're talking about. You might see some of those here too. So hopefully that's all working properly and we can read some of the same books together, or that you've already read something that I'm going to read and vice versa. So hopefully this, at least that's my goal anyways. And I also want to just have this more of a conversation channel. Again, like I said, the main reason that I'm doing it is just for my, own benefit, really. I have other channels. I have another channel that I use, quite frequently as a platform for my online business. I've got a channel on here that's just my first and last name, Emily Bowie. If you're interested in learning how to mix and master your own songs in your home studio. But I do a lot of editing for those because it's more educational, and I try to make that just as simple as possible for people to watch. But this one is not going to be like that because I'm really tired of editing. And if there's, silence where I'm thinking or whatever, I'm not going to get too concerned about that. I hope you won't either. But anyways, I just thought maybe we would talk about what I'm currently reading, what I've read this past year, what I'm looking forward to reading, things like that. So again, you may find some of these familiar, or that a lot of people are reading them at the moment because we all live on algorithms here, and a lot of us have shared interest in what we're reading. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this one out of the way here. Marcel Proust. In Search of Lost Time. I'm still on Swan's Way. I love this book. I have really taken my time with this one. I have my notes that I keep on it, and then I also have a journal that I've been keeping up with it as well. Just after I read, I don't know, anywhere between, I would say 20 to 50 pages. Anytime that I feel like there's a good, stopping point to reflect on that, then I'll write them down in here. And then as I go, I'm always collecting any sort of, I don't know, reoccurring themes, things that I find interesting, important characters, Let's see, for this one, I've got a list of things that are becoming habits. And I just want to keep a running track of that. A lot of people do a similar thing where they will write those as they read, just on a separate part of the book here. But I like to keep those in a field notes so that I can have those separate while I'm reading and then taking notes at the same time instead of having to hold my spot and then write them at the beginning of the book. There's also a lot of highlights and writing in here as well. If you're interested in what my note-taking system looks like, then I would be more than happy to do a video on that. I love notebooks and notes and all kinds of stuff like that, and systems. Oh, I love systems. But anyways, that is something that I've been reading for a little while now. I took a pause on it because I moved, and so it was just I wanted to be able to, with moving is chaotic, and so I just wanted to be able to maybe put this on pause a little bit until we got settled. But now that we are, I read this at night and I love it. That was another thing I wanted to do. I wanted to see how I felt reading it in the daytime, in the morning, or at night. And I just find that it's just very pleasing to me reading this right before bed. So that is an ongoing project. The rest of them are down here. As you can see, the whole set of In Search of Lost Time is there. And that will probably take me a pretty long time to get through, but I promise it will happen. Next up is this big mama, Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. This is coming off of another big read, and you may be if this one looks or sounds familiar to you right now, or if you're reading it currently as well, it's probably because you're in Benjamin McAvoy's online book club, the Hardcore Literature Book Club. This is not a sponsored video by any means. Probably don't even have any subscribers while you're watching this. Brand new. But this is something that I'm really looking forward to, and it was something that you hear. I heard the name of the book, but I never really knew anything past that. I didn't even know that it was this big. But of course, as soon as I get a book, I have to read a couple of pages, even if it's not something that I can get into just yet. Because before this one, this is what we were currently reading. Right? So if you're in the hardcore book club, then we came from this to this, and I'm not anywhere near through with this. I tried to have a set schedule to read the Tale of Genji, and I really want to finish this because the story, the storytelling in it is good. The character of Genji, not good. But, without getting into specifics, because I never want to have any sort of spoiler on these videos, unless it is, of course, a review video, and then you will know up front. But the Tale of Genji, still working on that. This one I find I like reading it more during the day, and so I've got my nighttime book with Swann's Way and Marcel Proust, and then the Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu. Probably not pronouncing those right, but I'm very sorry about that. I'm Southern. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on in this, and it's just kind of an ongoing tale, the Tale of Genji. And so back to back on that, I'm gonna have to figure out when to get this one in, because obviously I want to stay as current as I can in that book club, but I just don't know if it's possible, because there's also some other things in there that I also want to read, and it's we just don't have enough time to read all the books we want to read, right? At least that's how it always seems. So these two, all three of these currently reading. I'm running out of room here and I have a really big desk. Some other things that I've been reading, ongoing, but not in a way where it's going to be, a conflict with schedule or anything like that. But the complete short stories of Ernest Hemingway. Oh my God. I love his short stories. I love his books, but the short stories, if I've got just a little bit of time, I mean, you can just go through here, pick up one. They're still enjoyable to read over and over again. He's becoming one of my all-time favorites. These things are just easy to go through, pick up one just at any time. Also, great book to just take with you. I read the Stephen King's On Writing book not too long ago, his nonfiction piece. And he suggests that you always take a book with you. If you're going out, if you're going to the store, wherever, waiting rooms, doctor's appointments, always take a book with you. And I feel like this is a really good one to take with me because I can just, go to a story that I haven't read or one that I have already. If I know that, maybe my mind's not completely into the book, at least I have an idea of what I've read before. And then maybe in being in that situation, in that environment, like I pick up on something new in that story that I find that, is enlightening or important. So anything like that. And so this is kind of my on the go book as well. I guess I should probably get the other ones from the shelf here. One book that I've read this year, or maybe it was, let's see, I also write them down, February. So I finished this back in February, and I have a new favorite book now, and it is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And I was completely blown away by this story. I know so many people just want to really attach themselves in the book to the Cain and Abel story in the Bible, but that's just surface talk. This is, it's a masterpiece. Just the way that he describes these characters and their story and how he tells it. In the very beginning, a lot of times people, books have famous open liners and stuff, but I feel like just the opening first page here, the entire thing, it's the first thing that's, highlighted and starred because I have such a connection to stories and books that make me reminisce, make me have that nostalgic feeling of my childhood or a time where I cherish in my mind. And this book really does that, especially the first part. So, classic writing style, there's 3 parts, there's 3 books to this. And the first part is so good. I have been a James Dean fan for a really long time. And you probably know that they had a movie. James Dean's first major motion picture was East of Eden. And it's interesting because I had seen it so many times, so I thought I would have a pretty good idea about the book. But man, the movie is actually only the 3rd part of this book. And there's just so much backstory of how we get to that. So if you've seen the movie and you haven't read the book, you're gonna love this, okay? Because it's 2 prequels in one. How it's broken up into 3 parts is really 3 parts. Each part could be its own movie. I think it would be hard to do a movie or to represent the entire story like the book does, but it would be really cool to have that broken up into a trilogy, I think. And I'd hate to have the original third part, that movie that James Dean was in. I would hate to have that redone, but if we could do something like they did with Star Wars, maybe where you keep the older ones and then make the prequels the new ones. Oh, I just love it. And there was like a rumor going around. I don't know if it's true or not. You know how you can find all kinds of articles on the internet. But it was said that I believe it was Elon Kazan's great niece or someone like that, because he's the one that did the movie with James Dean, that she was going to try to get Netflix to produce the story of Kate, who's in here. And if you've seen the James Dean movie, you know who Kate is. But wouldn't that just be amazing? Because the movie really, I mean, leaves out all of her backstory, right? But we know why they are the way they are. Even Adam, Cal and Aaron's story. But so far, this is my favorite book ever. Will it stay that way? I don't know. Maybe. Another book that was a pleasant surprise this year that I finished was Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. I just thought it was such a good story. I mean, I guess you kind of, you know, the outcome of these before reading them, or before, even if I'd never heard about it, you could kind of guess how like things would end. But it's just the way that people are, and their character, and why they are the way they are. Why is my favorite thing to ask on pretty much anything when I'm learning something, when I'm you know, involved, deeply involved on an educational level, to get all I can out of it, the why. And I just think that Jane Austen is such a good writer. I mean, Pride and Prejudice, like, just the themes alone in this, there's so much to get out of it, so much to get out of it. And pleasantly surprised, can't wait to read more of her stuff. I want to read Persuasion next. I think that would be really good. Let me know if any of these writers so far, if any of them are your favorite, or if you've got any other suggestions on any of them. Please let me know, because so far these have just been amazing. Also, earlier this year, read Ernest Hemingway's. This was, I finished this one. I finished this one in 3 days. Some people could probably read it in one sitting. I'm a little bit of a slower reader, especially when I love to find the why, like I said. And this was you could get real deep with this one, and the characters, they're not like anybody I can compare them to. And so I went a little bit deeper on this, and then also watched the Hemingway documentary on PBS. Oh my God. If you haven't checked that out, please do. Please do. So good. Ken Burns just doesn't let anyone down. But as far as the characters go, I didn't know like what I could compare them to. You could almost compare them a little bit, an older version of maybe an early 30s, if you were in your early 30s version of the characters in Rebel Without a Cause, a little bit. Just kind of can spiral out of control when they're all together. And that's how I kind of felt about these characters. And then I realized that there is a term for these people, and their generation was called the lost generation. And I think that kind of makes a lot of sense. Being in your 30s, in the mid 20s, a time right after World War One, we don't really think about those people a lot, because we've got the greatest generation that would have been born at this time. I know my grandparents were born in the mid 20s, and a couple of them went on to fight in World War II. And so you don't hear a lot about these types of people, these people in that certain generation. And so I just thought it was a really, really good book. Really encapsulates the, I don't know, misunderstood part of those people and what they were going through, even though this doesn't even take place in America. Most of it takes place in Spain. And so, yeah, uh, Ernest, uh, he really cherished Spain and the bullfighting and all of that, and the whole culture of Spain. But looking forward to reading a lot more of his novels as well, even the ones that they say that aren't that great. But that was really good. Read that really super fast for me. What else do we have? Oh, I'll just go over here and bring the majority back. From the book club earlier this year was also The Master and Margarita. Not my favorite book. The story was good. There's a few things going on. Oh, it was interesting to find out that the song "Sympathy for the Devil," the Rolling Stones, was inspired by this story. Mick Jagger really liked this story and wrote "Sympathy for the Devil" based on the character, the devil, in this book. I think there's some interesting things going on about this. It's a Russian literature, and if it was something, I try to put myself in the first reader position on this one. If I was reading this for the first time when it came out, and I think it probably would have really struck a chord there because of all of the similarities that they were secretly writing about the government in Russia at the time during World War II, and how secretive they had to be if it didn't, have certain things that they had to meet. There was a requirement in books and what authors could write. And so to get away with writing some of that stuff, they had to be real secretive and kind of, in hidden meanings or comparisons. And I think that's interesting. A big thing that's happening in this book, without giving too much away, is that people go missing. And so they go missing in a certain way in this book, but really in real life, the Russian army was just taking whoever they wanted to take for whatever reason, and nobody ever heard from them again. So interesting in that aspect. Not my favorite book of the year, but still pretty interesting to read this and then understand why it was written. All right, so this next one is kind of what started it all. It was early last year, and I just kept hearing about it over and over again. I don't know if it was like on people's radars because of book clubs or whatnot, but I had to pick it up because people kept saying how hard it was. And so, you hear things like that and you want to see for yourself. Well, here we go. Gravity's Rainbow, Thomas Pynchon. So I got about halfway through this book, and I just sort of wanted to just like dive in, go for it. Not necessarily get too deep on it, but just to see, just to surface see. And then it hit me. I got it. I got the book mentally. And so I said, you know what? This isn't going to do. So I went back to page 1 and started going back over it. And ever since then, it's just been like, I've actually really enjoyed it. I mean, there's definitely parts, obviously, that make you go, what? But I get it. I get it now. I get the appeal. I get the humor in it. And so it's just been really enjoyable. This is something that if you can get your friends to read this along with you, and in a book club or just some discussions, you can talk about this for years. Y'all can have different opinions. You can get different things out of it. You can try to really get into the mind of Pynchon, and it's just crazy. And then the fact that it's also taking place at the end of World War II. Oh man. And then you start to really go down the rabbit hole, right? And then all the paranoia you realize you are starting to have, and then thinking that, you know what? This isn't so far-fetched now. especially like thinking about, you know, what the future may hold. Sometimes when we read these older books, they're like on the path. They were like telling us about stuff that we didn't even think about. So a lot of weird and cool stuff in this, and I get why people like it. I get why it's still being pulled for current book reads and book clubs and all that. So haven't quite finished it yet. This is something that I think I will probably do some sort of a review on, somewhat. And but I don't want any of the reviews to just be like summaries and stuff like that. So I'll really have to figure out how I want to kind of do our book reviews here, for something that I can look back on and, you know, get a lot out of, instead of just a summary that I can look up online. So this should be like a really good discussion. So looking forward to that. Also got into some Shakespeare this year. This is Othello. I really enjoyed this. It was a story that I read in high school, but of course, you know, wasn't paying attention to that at all, and I never watched the movie either. So that was good. There was a lot of things that came back to me that maybe I didn't think I was paying attention to, or the fact that you can pick out Shakespeare in a lot of different things. I'm talking TV shows, movies that aren't Shakespeare or an adaptation to, but it was his story. His stories have just lasted. The psychological part of it, and how we are as people, and our character. He really captured all of that in his plays, and it's not as hard as I remember it. Of course, this is the Folger library edition of it, and so there's some nice things here that kind of tell you what's going on and what they're talking about. If there's some language that, you know, we don't really use anymore, but this was actually really pleasant, and I can't wait to get through his entire list of plays and short stories. And this I thought was a good place to start. And so I'm going to continue doing that, because I think that I can pull from these other books and see influences that Shakespeare had, because I think he's probably a lot of these writers' first things that they've really read and really dived deep into in school, and when they were learning and when they were building that love of writing and reading. Last one here is Stephen King. And I read this one because my partner really loves Stephen King and loves fantasy and thrillers and all that stuff. So I said, well, you know what? I'll go ahead and read that one, because I read Stephen King's nonfiction book, Stephen King on Writing. And he talked about this one a lot. And so I really wanted to just see what it was all about. And it was super intense. And as soon as we were done reading it, we watched the movie with Kathy Bates. And that was her breakout role, which I thought was very cool. However, the movie doesn't do the book justice, and not in a way that it wasn't any good, but there's a lot in here that happens that they don't put in the movie. And I don't know if that was because of budget or what, or just because they thought that they would have to put an X rating on it. But this was super intense, and we will be doing a full discussion on this book and our thoughts on that too on her page. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. And when that happens, which will happen pretty soon, maybe in a couple of days, let me know, and I'll put a link of that video and discussion on Misery in the description here. Let's see. I've got a couple of other things up there. Oh, let's get this one first. So this is something that I've had for a little while, and I've just never read it, but I've been seeing it more and more on book recommendations on YouTube. And so this is William Faulkner, The Sound and the Fury. And I've had it, I guess I've dabbled into it a little bit, but nothing too serious. However, this was something that I guess I always put on the back burner, because for some reason it's another one like Gravity's Rainbow, where it gets, you know, a lot of negativity as far as how he's writing it, a little bit confusing. But what I have found is like most of the people who are saying that just haven't, they don't read all the time, or that they just read a certain type of book, maybe fantasy and stuff like that. Because I, have friends who read a lot of those. And if they were to just go ahead and pick this up and start reading it, they would be like, what? This is a little, this isn't as straightforward. Like, you really have to kind of concentrate on it, unless you just read books like this. However, I have read a little bit of it, and I think I'm really going to enjoy it. Because the things that I like the most are the things that make you think. And to me, there are works of art. It's not just a story. It is somebody, deep in their mind is coming up with these things. And they're coming up with them probably not just completely make believe, but there's been influence in their life somehow that creates these stories and creates these characters and the complexities of that, because real life is complex. And so I love books like that. Like I said, I've got to know the why. And I just feel like what I'm drawn to mostly are things like that. That's why I like Hemingway. Very complex individual, very, at times unstable, unfortunately. And so a lot of that comes out in these writings, and you might not pick up on it, initially, but it's there, and it really gives it, so much dimension. And so that's what I'm mostly looking forward to about this one, and just reading more of Faulkner. In high school, we just got into the short stories. And so, As I Lay Dying, that was one that I think we read, but some more of his short stories for sure. And he's from Mississippi, I'm from Tennessee. So I've got to get my Faulkner on. And I guess that's about it. There's a few other things over here as far as nonfiction goes. One that I was really, really super excited to get and then turned out to be amazing is Rick Rubin's The Creative Act. That was great. I might actually do a review on that one, because I would also like to put that on my Patreon account for my mixing and mastering students. The Daily Stoic, I do that every day to keep up writing and to keep my mind, in a good place. I think the Stoics were onto something good in nature and humanity. What else is up there? I have a ton of Elvis books. I love Elvis, and so I'm always reading an Elvis book. That's just half of them. I have. It's easier to get the audio version from Libby on some of those books, because they only have one run of them, and then that's it, and they're very hard to find. But a lot of music books, different artists, and Johnny Cash poems. There's a few other things there. Walt Whitman's complete works. I'm just about through with Song of Myself. I really wanted to go slow with that one. I've been picking apart line by line. Let me know if you're into poetry. Maybe we can talk about that. Again, I am by no means a scholar in literature or any of this stuff. These are just, an average reader here's opinion and thoughts on them. And so these are things that I just wanted to look back on. And if anybody's out there with similar interests and similar thoughts, or completely different thoughts, but we can have a dialogue about it, that's cool. I would be super interested in that, to seeing the different thoughts, the different ideas of what's going on in these pieces of work, pieces of art. And so, yeah. This video is going on a little bit longer than I wanted it to, so I'm going to end it there. But if there's any sort of topic, any sort of direction with this type of video that may interest you, probably interest me, so let me know. And I would be more than happy to explore that because, like I said, I want to continue to do this, get my fix in it, go back. That's the most important. I want to be able to keep something to catalog and look back on. And I love watching videos on YouTube, so this is the best way to do that besides writing in my journals. But anyways, all right, y'all. I guess I will talk about some more books in the next one. See ya.